All right. Good morning. How's everyone doing? Karibuni sana. Another day, another dollar. Welcome to the Afriforex daily analysis. This beautiful 11th day of July 2024. Hope that you guys are well, but we're glad that you could join us. Apologies for starting off a bit late or quite late. Lots of fundamentals that just came out at around 9, and we'll be having a look at them. GBPs and euros really had to make a lot of alterations on our watch list. So that's the reason why we're a bit late, but we're really glad that you could join us. Good to see lots of familiar names here, guys we always see here. And of course, guys that we've also not seen here before, karibuni sana. So welcome to the Forex Daily Analysis. John Bogo is my name. I'm a trader with Afriforex. Afriforex is a trading unit. It's not a one-man show. So we also do have Mitch. He is working in the back office. So in case you do have any questions, feel free to ask them both on the Q&A section and also on the chat box. Mitch will be getting back to you. But remember, you also don't really need to wait until the very end of the session. You still can ask your questions even as the webinar does end up progressing on, and you will definitely end up getting a response. But we always do prefer that you ask your questions, of course, before. Don't really wait until the very end of the session to ask your questions. Still ask even as we continue moving along, and of course ask them on the Q&A section, so that at least I can also end up having a look at them at the very end of the session. And of course that goes out to guys who are here on Zoom. If you're watching us from any of our overflows, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, X, our official Telegram channel, then I guess you just have to come into the Zoom meeting. There should be a link that should guide you here. So we're going to jump straight into it, and you can see the watch list right there. What we had yesterday versus what we do have today. So you can see that a couple of changes, but feel free to take note of that. But we'll start off by looking at the currency pairs that we had yesterday that unfortunately did not make it to our watch list this morning. So we'll start off with the Great British Pound against the Australian dollar. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. And you can see the 3 areas right there that I had pointed out. In the morning, when we're looking at the chart, the market was somewhere within this region. And I did point out that looking for the trades or some selling opportunities when the market was here was not a really good idea, because we were more or less within some sort of a buyer's region, and there was a possibility the buyers were possibly going to show up during the London session, and they did, and wanted to see the price come back in within here. But unfortunately, yesterday, the sellers were nowhere to be seen. You can see that the market came back within that region. There was really nothing to tell us to look for sells. The market could go to the downside, and you can see that the buyers really continued to push the market to the upside quite aggressively, coming back in within that region at the top there. But unfortunately, the market broke that region to the upside. So unfortunately, there were no selling opportunities on that one, and definitely something to do with the Great British Pound strength that came in. And you'll see that across the board as we look at the rest of the currency pairs, especially the GBPs. So we also did have the euro against the Great British Pound. For this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. You can clearly see the 3 areas that I had pointed out. In the morning, when I'm looking at the charts, price was somewhere within here. I did point out that it wasn't a good area to look for the buys, maybe waiting for the bridge to the upside, or maybe the market coming back in within here. It did, but unfortunately, you can see that the buyers really struggled, to push the market to the upside, but also something to do with some GBP strength. And you can see that also similar to this one, the Great British Pound on this one really did end up messing things up in terms of us looking for the buys, and also the euros just didn't end up showing the strength like we wanted to see. But remember, like we always point out, in case the market breaks, beneath the red SNR, then that meant that there were no buying opportunities for us. So the next one that we did have yesterday that unfortunately didn't make it on our watch list this morning is the US dollar against the Japanese yen. Now, for this one yesterday, we're watching out for buys. You can clearly see the 3 regions that I had pointed out. In the morning, when I'm looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this region. And I did point out that maybe we could possibly find the market coming back in within here for us to look for the buying opportunities. But also remember, we had pointed out that the yens were showing a lot of weakness. And so there was a high probability that the market was not really going to give us the deep pullback that we wanted to see. So you can see that the market broke to the upside, somehow held above here. You can see that from around 4:30, that the bars broke to the upside. You definitely needed to read this on a smaller time frame. And you can see that the market continued to rally up. So unfortunately, not really a currency pair that we'll be watching out for today in terms of trading opportunities. But of course, we did get any trades yesterday then definitely just make sure that you manage and hang on to them. You could find that the market could possibly continue to go up. But in terms of timing, new opportunities could be a bit tricky. So moving on into the next one. This is the New Zealand dollar against the US dollar. So for this one yesterday, we were watching out for sales. And you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. And in the morning, when we're looking at the charts, the market was somewhere within here. And I pointed out that maybe if the market comes back in all the way to within this region, we could look for sales. But there was also this region right here that I had pointed out that if the market comes back in somewhere as close as possible within here, if you read this on a smaller time frame, then maybe you could have grabbed this selling opportunity coming down. And you can see from around 10, which was during the London market open, the price spiked back up within this region. And after that, you can see that the market gave some sort of a good selling opportunity coming down, but you did need to manage your trade in this region right here. So this one gave at least one opportunity, but unfortunately today, not really a currency pair that we'll be watching out for. So the next one is the US dollar against the Canadian dollar. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. And you can see the three regions that I had pointed out. In the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this area right here. And you can see that during the London market open, the buyers attempted to push the market to the upside. But you can see that unfortunately, they just even couldn't get all the way to within there. It seems like the sellers were really, pushing the buyers. And of course, they just got held hostage within there. The market broke to the downside. We couldn't get the market coming back in. Had it possibly come back to the upside of this region, then this could have possibly been a good buy. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. And you can see that the market broke within this region. Seems like maybe the buys could end up working today. But unfortunately, not really a currency pair that we'll be watching out for because we don't really have the fundamental backing. But looking at what happened here yesterday, especially the market reaching to the downside, coming back up and holding within here, of course, if you did attempt any buys within this region right here, then definitely just a matter of maybe managing within this region because you can see that the market is in some sort of an SNR right here. You're not too sure whether the market could trade within here, especially considering the fact that the US dollar and the Canadian dollar are both on the same side. So you could find that maybe that currency pair could give you some sort of issues. So last but not least for review, we do have the US dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one yesterday, we were trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. And you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. And in the morning, when we're looking at the chart, price was somewhere within this region right here. I had put this virtual trade where I had pointed out that if you look for the buys here, if you put your stops within here, there's a possibility the market could possibly end up spiking down. You could easily end up getting caught and you could find that the market could end up possibly moving to the upside. But I also did end up putting this illustration where I talked about that maybe you could find the market spiking down. If it comes back to the upside and holds, then you could potentially try and see whether you could actually jump in on this trade, after the spike. And you know that's actually going to be much safe. And you can see that the market came down, came back up. There was some sort of a hold within here, which you did need to read on a smaller time frame. And after that, you can see that the market did continue to move to the upside. So this one also gave a really good buy, but unfortunately, not really a currency pair. And we're going to be trying to see whether we can get opportunities today. So before we move on into today's watch list, let's have a look at some screenshots we did get, actually two, and we're really happy still to see. So this one is from Bravin. So shout out to you, Bravin, the silver man. I know that you love taking trades on silver. So you got a really good buy somewhere within this region right here. If you got it on the pullback, then that was really good. Stop loss somewhere within here, the market moving in your favor. I don't know where you are targeting, but I'm sure that on entry, maybe your stop loss is a bit lower, but you did end up bringing it a bit higher. Maybe at this point in time, maybe it could even be somewhere within this region, more or less at your point of entry. But this is a really good trade. Good to see that you got the trade somewhere within this region. So on the pullback, when resistance became support. So this was really good. So shout out to you for that, Bravin, and of course, keep up the good work. And last but not least, we did also get a trade from Mark Kingori. So Mark, if you're here, shout out to you. Or if you're watching from wherever, shout out to you as well. So this is the Australian dollar against Japanese yen. So you can see that you got a really good buy somewhere within this region right here. Of course, the market went to the upside. You got it on the pullback, back within there. And of course, the market went up. Can't see that you did end up doing, I think, some sort of money management there. Stop loss already above your point of entry. Don't know where you're targeting with this one, but if you're hanging on, remember, like I pointed out, the yen pairs are really moving. And, a lot of weakness and the big boys are really dumping the yen. So If you're hanging on to this one, hang on to it. See how much the market could possibly end up paying you. But this is really good. So shout out to you, Bravin and Mark Kingori, so for the good work. Of course, one-on-one students, both of them, and we're really happy to see that you guys are killing it on the charts. So, of course, remember, if you want to send in your screenshots, you can. Our contact details and our WhatsApp number is there on the chat box. So feel free to send them in to us. Us guys are always more than happy to see what you guys are up to on the charts. And remember, even if your screenshots are not really that good, it's okay. At least that's the reason why we are here, so that we can give you the much needed advice. So make sure that you do use us as a resource. So moving on into matters today, and I hope that guys have taken note of what the watch list is going to be looking like today. So we'll start off by mixing and matching up the Australian dollar pairs. The Australian dollar with everything on the sell side. Then move on to the euro, then the British pound, do the same. Then we'll move on to the indices and the commodities. So the first one off the line, the Australian dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. And you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. So in the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this region right here. And I guess there was some sort of a minus and now some sort of a seller's region. The market did end up coming back down. And you can see that this was during the London market open. There was a possibility price was going to come back in here. And that's the reason why we had that region. And you can see that off that area, the market really took off to the upside. So for this one, for today, we'll be keeping up with the buys. But remember, we don't buy when the price is high. So we always want to make sure that we're getting the market on the pullbacks. So make sure that you do wait and see if you can get the market coming back in. At least if we get some sort of a pullback coming back in within here, then this is a good area for you to look for your buying opportunities. Right now, it's a bit risky. So don't really look for the buys now. Unless the market breaks above this region to the upside, if it does hold above here, then you could possibly end up looking to see whether you could get buys. But ideally, let's wait and see if we could get, maybe during the London session, the market pulling back in. If we get the market coming back in within here or somewhere within here, then ideally we could potentially try and see whether we could get some buying opportunities. So do watch out for that. Remember the red SNR, in case the market breaks that region to the downside and holds below it, then unfortunately at that point in time, there will be no trade for us. So moving on into the next one, this is the Australian dollar against the Canadian dollar. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buys. And you can see the three regions that I have pointed out. In the morning, when I'm looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this area right here. And I have pointed out that I don't really look for the buys right here because there was this SNR that I also did point out where you could find that maybe the sellers within here could give issues. You can see that they did give issues. So the market came back down, technically held within here for an extended period of time before during the Asian session today. You can see that that's when the market has really moved to the upside. The buy that we were watching out for yesterday happened today. But of course, this being an Australian dollar currency pair, it shouldn't really be surprising because remember, the Australian dollar and the New Zealand dollar and the yen tend to be extremely active during the Asian session. So I guess you should end up being a bit more understanding about that. The only unfortunate thing is that the times when this one ends up moving, or when it did end up moving, most of you are possibly not on the charts at that time. And sometimes it can be frustrating. You're timing a trade the whole of yesterday only for it to actually end up happening, when you're not really on the charts or at a time when, you're not really hanging on to any trades or anything of the sort. But that's the nature of trading. So for this one, we will be waiting to see what happens. Let's see if we can get the pullbacks coming in. The levels are the same, but also remember that this region in the middle, there's also a possibility you could find the market coming back in. Let's say if the market doesn't pull back in all the way till the bottom of this range that it had formed yesterday, maybe if the market comes back in within here, just to tap the top of the range after this breach of structure to the upside, then you could potentially find that maybe there could be some buying opportunities within here. The only thing about this buy is that you also need to be very careful in terms of how you go about it because you could really end up getting stopped out. On the other hand, you also need to end up making sure that you get a perfect balance, between a tight stop loss and not getting stopped out. Because remember that this region right here still ends up still being a wall, ahead of you, and you can't ignore that. So trying to squeeze in some proper risk to reward within here could be a bit tricky. So unless you're highly experienced, then you can grab this, get a proper stop loss without getting stopped out and still get some good risk to reward coming back up within here. I would suggest you maybe just wait for the market to break to the upside. Even if it taps within here and you can't grab that trade, even if the market breaks to the upside of this region and you get that trade coming back in within here, then I guess for guys who are not so experienced on the charts, then you could possibly end up looking for this trade. It might give you a better risk to reward and give you less issues as you go about it. So just make sure that you watch out for that. But also remember these two other areas right here as well. They do seem like a long shot, especially the red SNR. But like we always point out, anything is possible when it comes to the Forex market. So the next one is the Australian dollar against the New Zealand dollar. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities as well. And you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. So in the morning, when you're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this region coming up. I did point out caution in terms of looking for the buys, especially when the market was just talking just below within this region, because we were not too sure, how the sellers within this area were going to react. So it was only once the market broke to the upside, and it seems like it's holding to the upside. Unfortunately, you can't see that the buyers are not really there anymore. It's like they broke and pushed this market to the upside. Then after that, it's like they've completely disappeared. So for this one, it's a bit tricky to find that due to the fact that the market is actually holding above, just above this region right here, there's a possibility the buyers are possibly setting some sort of a trap for the retail traders, whereby the market is just holding just above this region right here. And of course, millions of traders across the world can definitely see this. And of course, more and more people are definitely jumping into buying opportunities because they can definitely see that support is holding. But one thing that they're not asking is, why is it that the market is not yet moving, off that region right there? It's because, like I'm pointing out, the buyers are definitely setting a trap. The fact that many people are saying that this level is holding, they're definitely entering the buys and putting their stops within here. So you'll possibly find that the market could potentially spike to the downside, maybe even come down looking for these levels right here. Stop out so many people. If it comes back up to the upside, if you end up looking for buys after you get a hold within here, at least if you get some buying opportunities after the spike, then at that point in time, you're much safer. The guys who are jumping in on buys right now, it's not that the buys can't work. There's a possibility, they still can end up working out. It's just that they carry more risk because they're not aware. Well, maybe this could potentially be a trap, that's being set up by the big boys. And definitely many people are definitely having their stop losses within here. You can imagine the billions and the trillions of dollars in terms of stop losses and money that guys have put on the line that is within here. And the big boys are possibly and definitely most probably will end up cashing in on that. So just make sure that you don't end up also being part of the people who are going to be funding the big boys today. So make sure that you just wait. You could also find the market coming back in within here. Consider the market pushed itself off this region to the upside quite aggressively. So you could find that maybe if price comes back in as close as possible within there, you could look for the buys. And of course, the last region, at the bottom right there where we do have that red SNR. So the next one is the Australian dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. And you can't see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. And in the morning, price was somewhere within this region right here. So you can see that during the London session, it seems like this resistance area was holding. But during the US session, the market broke to the upside. But unfortunately, the pullback couldn't come back in all the way to within this region right here. But you can see that the market has continued to rally up. And I think this is a trade that we saw Mark already did actually end up getting. So shout out to you for that, Mark. And if you're still hanging on to it, then that's good. Please, even today during the Asian session, you can see that the market has continued to move to the upside. So for this one, we do have these three regions right here that we're watching out for. So we're still going to be waiting to see whether we can get the buys within this area right here. The reason why I haven't put a level here, because maybe some of you may be wondering, is because the market has just broken this region to the upside. And then this one is more or less, I think, at the highest it's ever been. So we don't really have much of a reference point to the upside. So all we can do is possibly wait for the market to come back in within here. If it bounces off here, then at least we know that the next area that we should be targeting should be somewhere higher up within here. So that's the reason why we don't have that level there. So just watch out for this region here. But there's also a possibility that you could find the market coming back in within this region. maybe for some sort of a retest. If the yen gets a bit of strength, so far they've been showing a lot of weakness, and you can see that this one has just been rallying up. The pullbacks have not really been that deep. So you could find that maybe these levels right here, the market might not come back there, but it's always good to always have those options. It's always better for you to always be prepared for something in case it happens. So just make sure that you watch out for them. But definitely, this is the region where you should be watching out for. You could find the pullback coming back in within there. Even if you get this buy going up, definitely make sure that you manage at the top. Remember, like we always point out, when the breach happens, if you get the market on the pullback, then the next high should always be your next reference point in terms of a problem area. If you ignore this region right here, then you're not being realistic in terms of your trades. Of course, you could target higher, but just make sure that you do manage your trade within that region. So moving on into the next one, this is the Australian dollar against the US dollar. So this is a new entrant on our watch list. So we'll be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities on this one. So watch out for these three areas right here. These are the areas that we'll be waiting to see what happens. You can see that the market has tapped some sort of resistance right there, and the sellers are reacting, during the Frankfurt session open. Let's see if we can get the market coming back in somewhere as close as possible within here. If we do, then we could try some buying opportunities within here to come back up till within there. And of course, if the pullback comes in deeper, then there is also this possibility that the price could come back in within here. So just make sure that you watch out for that. Watch out for the times. Like we always keep on mentioning 10, 3, and 4:30. Right now, you can't see the market moving because also 9 is also a good time where you could find that during the Frankfurt Open, the market can sometimes end up moving, and that's right now. So just make sure that you watch out for that. But also remember, if the pullback doesn't come back in all the way to within here, definitely you can see that there are some buyers who are holding within here. The only problem is that don't really try and squeeze yourself within this region right here. It might not really be worth it. I mean, chasing 5 pips, then that means that your stop loss needs to be like 2 pips, which I don't really think the broker will let you do. So you're better off maybe waiting, for the market to actually break this region to the upside. If we get a nice strong breach, you could wait for the pullback, and you could actually end up jumping in on that buy to resume if you can't get the market coming back in within here, as opposed to trying to be a cowboy, trying to trade this small range right here. So hopefully you guys have taken note of that. And I guess that's pretty much it for the AUD pairs. So right now we're going to move on to the Euro pairs, mix and match them up with everything on the sell side. So we're going to start off with the Euro against the Swiss franc. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. And you can see the 3 regions right there that I had pointed out. And in the morning, price was somewhere within here. I had pointed out that it was best to wait for price to break to the upside. And then after that, look for the buys. And you can see that's exactly what the market did. So you can see the market broke to the upside quite aggressively, then held. Definitely needed to read that on a smaller time frame. And after that, you can see that the market did actually end up taking off. So for today, this one gave a good buy. Let's see if today the market is still going to continue pushing to the upside. So right now, the market is just breaking that region to the upside, but you can see that that breach is not really the best of breaches. Of course, we still could find the market pushing itself off this region to the upside. But right now, I think it's best to possibly wait because it's one of 2 things. Either the market come back in. Let's say the buyers need to get, a fresh pair of sellers coming into the market and fresh money coming into the market. They need to incite some sellers. So they need to stop out all the buyers fast. And you could find the market coming back in within there before the market resumes to the upside. So make sure that you do watch out for that. Alternatively, what could end up happening is, and the best way to go about it, and of course, remember that, the pullback can also come back in all the way to within that region. But right now, also the other thing that you should be looking out for is in case the market doesn't come back in all the way to within there, at least if it comes back to the downside and the buyers are able to push this market to the upside and we get a hold, then at that point in time, if you do actually end up taking the buy, then at least that one might be much better. The only problem is that, you'll definitely need to watch out for this region because if the market takes off to the upside, but in a very slow manner, and you can see that the buyers are not really there, then ideally at that point in time, it's better for you to scratch that trade. Because if you don't, then you could find that maybe the sellers might come back in and the market could come back in all the way to within this region, right? And you could get stopped out. So make sure that you watch out for what happens if the market can't take out this region fast and quite aggressively and really take off aggressively off this region right here. then there's bound to be a problem. The buyers will definitely need a better price. So just make sure that you watch out for that. But in terms of looking for the buy now, I don't really think that would be very wise. So just make sure that you do actually end up waiting. So moving on into the next one, this is the euro against the Canadian dollar. So for this one yesterday, we were also watching out to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. And you can see the three areas that I had pointed out. And in the morning, I had pointed out that it was better to wait and see if we could get either the market breaking above this region to the upside, which you can't see that the buyers showed up, but couldn't get a hold. Remember that we always talk about a breach and a hold. It's not just a breach, because I mean, the guys who just do the market break to the upside, breakout traders, and the hit buys right there, I don't really think yesterday they had a very good day. So you can see that the market came back in all the way to within this region right here. And you can see after that, the market took off to the upside, although it could have been a bit tricky grabbing this trade, maybe unless you got it somewhere within this region, because it also seems like the market did some sort of a probe and a hold to the upside. I mean, if you did end up missing out on that trade within there, you can see that the market did push to the upside. So for this one for today, these are the three areas that we're going to be watching out for today. So watch out for that region right there. We have this area. So we've done some minor adjustments, especially on the bottom two levels, just in line with what the story is telling us. So you can see that the market is just breaching to the upside, but let's see if we can get the market pulling back in within here for us to take some proper buys. You could hit the buy here, have your stop here, but unfortunately you can't see that there's some sort of a minor sellers region within there. You could find some sort of a drawdown, just hitting the buy there. You could find that maybe the market might stop you out, because you never know if the market could come back in within here, do some sort of a spike, come back up, and then after that do something like that. So possibly just wait and see if you can get the market somewhere within this region right here. And at least if it does end up attempting to come to the downside, you're also going to be buying possible within this region where we have these buyers who are currently pushing up. So just make sure that you do watch out for that. And of course, watch out for this region at the bottom. But my best bet would be we'll get something like this, maybe during the London market open, then potentially you could find some good buying opportunity within there. And of course, targeting the region at the top. So the next one, the euro against the New Zealand dollar. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buys, and you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. Remember that the NZDs had really moved, especially due to the interest rate decisions that had come out earlier in the morning. And I had pointed out that it was better to possibly wait and see if we could get the pullbacks coming in. So unfortunately, the pullback couldn't come back in within here. And of course, when the market broke to the upside, you can see that the buyers pushed aggressively. The market seemed to have been holding within here, but after this move right here, the buyers kind of disappeared, because you can't really see the big boys. Look at how the market was really struggling to go up. So this could possibly mean that maybe the buyers possibly need, a fresh pair of legs. So they're going to be inciting, some sellers to come in before they possibly end up making another go at it. So just make sure that you watch out for these three regions right here. So let's see if we can get the market coming back in as close as possible within here. And of course, if you do get the buys within there, then you could definitely target within here. There's some minor scenarios in between that you just need to watch out for. But generally, I think the best buy definitely somewhere within here. There's a small buyer's region, within this area right here. But I don't know if it's really worth squeezing yourself within here. So this is about 33 pips, which is not too bad. So I guess if, let's say you end up going down to a smaller time frame, and you actually see the buyers actually holding this price to the upside, you could possibly end up making an attempt, for a buy, because this one, at least it being 33 pips, is not too bad. So let's say even if you do end up looking for that trade right there, the only thing is your stop can't be too far, because, if you're going to be playing this trade, then that means that you're going to be taking it as a 3-1 type of trade, not a 15-3. Because if you end up putting your stop loss all the way down here, because you're really trying to hide your stop loss, look at how bad your risk to reward ends up getting. So better to possibly end up having the stops, somewhere within this region right here, so that if the market goes up, you can definitely see that that risk to reward is worth it. So that in case also, let's say the market does end up breaching to the downside of this area, then at least you could possibly end up getting out of that trade and maybe trying to see whether you can get another trade within here. You can easily end up recovering whatever you ended up losing here, because now the risk to reward on this one will even be much more than what you would have gotten over here. But this one is more of a cowboy trade. Unless you really have a stomach for losses, don't really end up taking that one. some of us, we've developed, strength and tenacity over time, and we do have a stomach for losses. If you don't, I would suggest you possibly don't end up jumping in on that trade. But it being a 3-1, I guess if it does hold within here, just make sure that you do end up reading the story of what happens within this region. You could really find a really good buy and a quick buy coming in there. And of course, if you're still you could possibly end up attempting that trade, on a small lot size, like a 0.01. Don't really try and go hard and go home. You could be new in the industry and immediately you get sent home, get sent packing. So just make sure that you don't really end up trying to go hard or go home. But at least sometimes because of building that experience, it's also important to possibly end up attempting, trades here and there. Just to try and see so that you end up building that experience that you need. So moving on into the next one, this is the euro against the Japanese yen. So for this one, yesterday, we were trying to see whether we could have gotten buys. And you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. And in the morning, when we're looking at the charts, you can see that the price was somewhere within this region. I had pointed out caution in terms of looking for the buying opportunities when price was holding below. But I think that the buyers pushed to the upside quite aggressively and there was a hold. And this is exactly what we keep on talking about. When we talk about wait for the market to breach aggressively and wait for the hold. Any buys within here at 3, but if you did have your stops within here or somewhere within here, you can generally see that the market pushed to the upside quite well. So for this one, we're still going to be watching out for buys. So do watch out for these three regions right here. So we're going to be waiting for the pullback somewhere at the conservative region right there. And of course, do watch out for these two other regions right here. Slim possibility prices could come back in within here, of course, based on what we're seeing with the yens. But in terms of trading, it's always good to always have an open mind because things do happen on the charts. And you don't really want to be caught off guard, in case the pullbacks do end up coming in. So moving on into the last euro pair, this is the euro against the US dollar. So for this one, new entrant on our watch list, we're going to be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. So do watch out for those three regions right there. So you can see that the market is pulling back in. Maybe it could be coming back in for some sort of a retest within here, and that's exactly what we're waiting for. If we get the market pulling back in within here, then we could look for the buy. Now, you need to watch out for this region right here. Early in the morning, when we're looking at the charts with the team, the price was somewhere within this region right here, and we're expecting price to come back in within here because the level at the top and the one that I've highlighted is more like a bigger time frame level that you need to watch out for. But considering the fact that the market didn't get there, because we were thinking that maybe the market was going to tap here, then maybe turn. But the fact that it's turned off here and it's now starting to come back down, then this level still remains. But of course, now when you get the buy, down within this region right here, when the market comes high up within there, in as much as you could be targeting here, just make sure that you also watch out for here, because if the market has turned off there before, it can end up doing that again. So just make sure that you have that at the back of your mind, maybe doing some money management, if you get into issues within this region right here. So make sure that you watch out for that. And of course, also watch out for the region at the bottom, in case the market comes in all the way till the bottom right there, you could look for the buys. But remember, if the market breaks to the downside, then unfortunately, there will be no trade for us at that point in time, unless the market goes to the upside of that region. So that's pretty much it for the euro pairs. So right now, we're going to move on to the GBP pairs. We're going to mix and match them up with everything on the sell side. So we'll start off with this one. This is the Great British Pound against the Swiss franc. So for this one, we're going to be watching out for buys. So do watch out for these three areas right here. So we have the conservative there, the semi-aggressive conservative within this region right here. We do have the aggressive down within this area right here. So let's see what happens. This one is similar to the euro against the Swiss franc, just going back to it. So you can see that the market on this one has just shyly broken to the upside. Similar situation with it. So the story is the same. So if we get something like this, whereby the market pulls back to the downside, and the buyers really push the market to the upside, if you get the hold within here, then at that point in time, you could look for the buying opportunities. But since there's some good correlation, with the euro against the Swiss franc, then just make sure that if you see something on one, have a look at the other. You could find maybe both of them could move at the same time. And if you do know how to manage your risk, then you can definitely end up jumping in on both. And you could find that, potentially you could get some good rewards today. So the next one is this one. This is the Great British Pound against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, also a new entrant on our watch list, looks somehow similar to the Great British Pound against the Swiss franc. So even for this one, similar situation. So we'll be waiting to see what happens within this region here. In case the market just holds within this region right here, well, you could jump in on some buys. It's a bit risky because if you do jump in on the buys there, maybe you could have your stops within here. But if the buyers really struggle to take off from within this region, then you're better off starting that trade, because what you could find is that the market might need to spike lower than this, maybe stop out some people. And if you end up still hanging on to that trade, you could find that you could easily end up getting, caught before the market actually makes a move to the upside, then actually ends up taking off. But ideally, like I pointed out, because of experience, sometimes, of course, you can try some of these things out on demo first before you actually end up jumping in on live. If you end up getting stopped out, let's say if you take the buy there, stop loss within here, and just get stopped out by the market, then it comes back in. You could definitely take a second attempt, within this region after the spike, the downside, and definitely you can end up possibly trying to see whether you can recover your money. But now the problem with many people, what normally happens is you take a loss and then you end up sulking. If you had actually kept your mind in the game and possibly taken the next trade after the one that you lost on the same chart, then possibly you would have recovered your money. But sometimes when you end up losing, you feel like you don't really want to look at that chart again. It's like you end up getting some sort of a grudge against that chart. But make sure that you try and keep your mind in the game. And of course, when we end up giving you this advice, these are things that we've been through. Like for me personally, there's a time I lost a lot of money on the yen, and I didn't really want to look at the yen pairs. But it's just a matter of making sure that you have the mental strength, to really keep your head in the game, and that's how you end up winning. So for this one, this is the Great British Pound against the New Zealand dollar. So for this one, also a new entrant, we're going to be watching out to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. So do watch out for those three areas right there. Don't look for buying opportunities right now. Might not really be the best of ideas. Wait and see if you can get the market possibly breaking above this region to the upside. If that happens and you do get a hold and a nice pullback coming back in, then you could attempt the buys and you could move to the upside quite well. But right now, considering the fact that it's holding within this region, you could find the market coming back in within here. Maybe in the London session, you could find that sellers could push the market down, and you could find the proper buys could be somewhere within there, maybe somewhere within this region right here. So just make sure that you do watch out for that. So the next one, and the second last one, is a Great British Pound against the Japanese yen. So for this one, we're going to be watching out to see whether we could get some buying opportunities. So do watch out for these three regions right here. And you can see that there's some good correlation happening amongst the GBP pairs. So also for this one, we can see if you can get the market coming back in within here. There's a possibility you could find that some sort of a spike happening. Maybe price could come back in within there or somewhere within these levels right here. But ideally, if you end up waiting for that, I think you might be safer taking that buying opportunity within this region. So just make sure that you do watch out for that. But so far, at least in terms of the GBP strength, it's really coming in. So just make sure that if you get some good pullbacks coming in and you see some good opportunities, make sure that you capitalize on them. So last but not least, we have the Great British Pound against the US dollar. So for this one, yesterday we were trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. And you can see the three regions that I had pointed out. So in the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within here. I wanted to see the market break to the downside, which it did not. And I did point out caution in terms of looking for the buying opportunities, within this region right here, because we were not too sure whether the buyers were going to react, and they did. And you can see that during the London session, the market went up. But unfortunately, we couldn't get the sellers coming in, because I illustrated that we were either also waiting to see whether the pullback will come back in within here. But we did need to see, the sellers coming in, and unfortunately, we didn't see that happen. So you can see that this one broke to the upside. Similar situation with the rest of the GBP pairs. So for this one, today we're going to be watching out for buys. And also due to the fact that, the GBP fundamentals came out pretty strong. So I guess the bias has shifted for this one. So we will be watching out for those three levels right there. So hopefully you take a note of that, but don't look for the buying opportunities here. Wait for either the bridge to the upside, or let's see, maybe during the London session open, if we could get the market pulling back in, maybe somewhere within this region right here, or maybe somewhere within here, in case the big boys do end up needing those prices. So do watch out for that. And I guess that's pretty much it for the GBP pairs. We'll see whether the strength is going to be continuing moving into today. Seems like things must be good for the Great British Pound, and also for Great Britain. I mean, even yesterday they did actually end up winning their semi-final match against Netherlands. For the guys who follow what's going on in the Euro 2024. But I don't think that really has anything to do with trading, of course. So I hope guys have taken note of that, and of course of the watch list, what we're going to be watching out for today. So I guess we can end up moving on to the indices, which are the last things we're going to be watching out for. So starting off with the NAS 100. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. Can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. In the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere around here. So at around 9:10, wasn't really a good area for you to look for your buying opportunities, but you can see that the market broke to the upside, came back in, and you can see that the market pulled back in. This was during the New York Stock Exchange open, came back in within that region, and you can see that off this area right here, the market really took off to the upside quite aggressively. So for this one, I'm still going to be keeping up with the buying opportunities. So do watch out for these three regions right here. And don't look for the buying opportunities now. Wait for the breach of that resistance area that the market is testing right now. If we get a breach to the upside, maybe something similar to this, then you could potentially end up jumping in on the buys, and the buyers could potentially continue to push the market and rally it up. And of course, if you do end up grabbing that buy, then that's good. But right now, let's wait and see. Maybe you could find the sellers pushing the market down, backing within this region, or somewhere within that area right there. But remember, for as long as we're holding above the red SNR, then ideally the buyers should be to look for those buying opportunities. So moving on into the next one, this is the Dow Jones, so the US 30 or WS 30. So for this one, yesterday we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. And you can see that the market was more or less holding within this region yesterday, at a time like this yesterday. You can see that during the London session, the market was not really moving. But during the US session, that's when the market really took off to the upside, especially after the New York Stock Exchange opened. You can see that the buyers really came in of this region right here. So for this one, we're still going to be keeping up with the buys. And you can see how aggressively those buyers really pushed the market to the upside. Definitely lots of people right now are attempting to see whether they can get some buying opportunities. But of course, since you guys come for the Afriforex daily analysis, then you're better than that. You definitely know that looking for those buys right now is not really the best of ideas. We can see if you could potentially get some sort of a pullback coming back in within this region here. Or maybe even somewhere within here, could find that maybe the big boys could meet that price. Because based on how aggressively the market moved to the upside, if you end up going up a higher time frame, you can generally see that the market broke free of this region right here in this range. So you could find that maybe the pullback might also come back in just to tap somewhere within this area. So make sure that you also have that at the back of your mind. But it's just a matter of waiting to see. You know, if you can get some sort of a reaction, if the pullback happens maybe back in within this region right here, just a matter of waiting to see if you can get the big boys showing up. If they don't show up within here, then wait and see if you could get them showing up within this region. If they don't, and the market breaks to the downside, then I guess at that point in time, you could potentially try and see, you know, whether you could get some selling opportunities, of course, if the market holds to the downside of that area. So make sure that you watch out for that. Of course, remember to watch out for the times, the indices, and the commodities normally tend to move a lot during the US session. Of course, that's because they are pegged on the USD. So in case things are not moving during the London session, just make sure you wait for the US session. So the next one is silver. Now for silver, yesterday we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. And you can see that these are the three regions that I had pointed out. In the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within here. I had pointed out that there was a minus and now, you know, somewhere within this region right here. We are waiting to see if we could have gotten the price coming back in within here, but generally you can see that the buyers have really been holding the market. You know, somewhere within this region right here, the market seemed like it broke to the upside, but the market just couldn't get past. You know, these sellers who are sitting within here, you can see that the buyers really attempted, you know, really break free of this region right here, but they just couldn't, and the market came back into the downside. So for this one, we're more or less looking at the same areas that we're watching out for yesterday. The bias is still to look for buying opportunities. Reason being, we're still in what we call a buyer zone. So for as long as we're holding above the red FNR, then the buyers should be to try and see whether we could get some buying opportunities. Right now, you can see that the buyers have come back in within this region. You can see that the sellers within here still giving some sort of issues. So there are two ways how you could go about it. And let me put this level right there. So either if you're a cowboy on the charts, which if you do end up getting a buy within here, and let's say the market gives you something like that, if you get the buy within there, of course, definitely should be targeting within this region or maybe even higher. If the market comes back in within here and you get issues, it's better for you to either scratch your trade or manage your trade, because you're not too sure whether the sellers again could end up pushing the market to the downside. And I mean, if you've made some gains, off this region, just coming in within this region right here, you should not really be giving up those gains. So just make sure that you do manage your trade. So that's scenario one. Now, the other way you can go about it is if the market breaks above this region to the upside and we can clear this region, then if the market pulls back in within this region, if you end up jumping in on that buying opportunity, within this region right here, then you could find that that buy will possibly end up giving you lesser issues than this one. So this one is aggressive. This one is a bit more conservative. And of course, depending on how you trade, you could possibly even end up taking both of them. So you could get this trade right here, and you also could end up getting this trade right here. But I think this one might be a safer bet. If you get the breach to the upside, this one you could easily end up getting taken for a ride within here, especially during the London session. Could be taken on an emotional roller coaster. So if you're going to be taking that trade, also be ready for that in case it does end up happening. But also watch out for this region at the bottom right here. In case, let's say the market and the buyers do need a better price, better than this, then you could find the market coming back in squarely, within this region, and you could find that maybe off that region, that's where the buyers could potentially end up pushing the market to the upside. So make sure that you do watch out for that. So last but not least, we do have gold. Now, for gold and silver, I know most of the time they're normally on the same side in terms of direction or following the same. But right now, they are on opposite ends, and there's a bit of a clash. The story is almost the same, but slightly different. And for that reason, that's why you're finding one is on a buyer's zone, the other one is on a seller's zone. So for this one, yesterday, we were trying to see whether we could have gotten some sales. And you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. In the morning, when I looked at the charts, the market was somewhere within here, and had illustrated that maybe if the market comes back to the downside of this area, we really had our eyes locked to see if that was going to happen for us to really jump in on the sales to come into the downside. But I also pointed out that you could find that maybe somewhere within here, maybe you could find that the sellers could possibly end up reacting. And you can see that the buyers pushed to the upside, came back in, and the sellers really attempted to push the market lower, but we just couldn't get the market coming back in within this region right here. So for this one, it's within a tricky situation. We're in a catch-22 situation on this one, to be honest, because of course, we're waiting to see what happens. If the market breaks and holds above this region, then we're definitely going to start looking for those buying opportunities. But right now, we're really waiting to see what does end up happening, within this area right here. The reason why we've not yet switched it to a buy, and definitely can end up switching real soon. We just need to wait and see if we can get the confirmation. We want to see what the sellers within this region are going to do. If we can get the market maybe attempting to break to the downside and the buyers actually end up holding this market above here, I think at that point in time, we can confidently end up looking for the buying opportunities. Right now, you could look for the buys, but unfortunately, be aware that there's this region right here that could still give you issues, and the market can still be pushed to the downside. So it's only once we get maybe something like this, maybe that's when we'll end up looking or trying to see whether we can get buys. Because alternatively, what could happen is you could find that the market could actually push to the downside. And you can see that there are sellers within these regions right here. And if the market actually holds to the downside of this area, then you could find that the market could either come back down, within that region there, or maybe even all the way down to within this region, after some sort of incitement within this area. So for this one, I think it's just a matter of really waiting. You need to really hold your horses, just really wait. Let's see what the big boys are doing. Remember that they always keep their cards so close to their chest. You can't quite tell what they're up to. So maybe they're laying a trap, for guys to really start hitting buys, maybe make it seem like price is holding above this region to the upside. Definitely lots of people are going to be putting their money on the line, but they won't be aware that they're actually funding the big boys. So just make sure that you don't really end up getting caught in that. So for this one, maybe just a bit of patience. Let the markets define what they want to do, then after that, we can always jump in on the trades. So I hope that is clear for guys. And I hope that everything else that we've discussed is also clear for guys. So I guess we can end up looking at some questions on the Q&A section. So I see Alan Ronald there saying, morning, karibu sana Alan, always good to see you here. I see Caroline Moneki, you're saying, will CPI affect the watch list? There's some CPIs that have come out for the euros, but we're just waiting to see what happens, maybe during the London session, to see what moves we end up getting on that. But definitely, you can see that there are also more CPIs, and you can see that they're high impact news events. You can see that they have 3 stars. So definitely, you will find some activity on the chart at that point in time. So just make sure that you either manage your trades. If you're going to be jumping in on trades before that, or if you're going to be jumping in on trades after that, then ideally, of course, remember to always wait for the pullbacks. But definitely when such kind of news are happening, ideally, if you end up getting the trade beforehand, then it's always better because the news events could easily come in and you could definitely find that the market could potentially end up hitting your take profits or moving in your favor when that news event happens, because maybe that is a news event that is needed to really make the market move. So just make sure that you watch out for that, but that's a really good question. So I see Alan, once again, so you're asking, is there a trade for GBP since both are on the buy side? Can they really happen? Well, you could find that, yes, to some extent, you could find the market could still end up moving. It doesn't mean that, like when we tell guys don't mix and match things up on the same side, it's not that you can't. You definitely still can end up doing that. But remember, the reason why we don't really end up doing that is because in as much as we're looking at what's happening on the technicals, we also want to find that perfect balance with the fundamentals, because the best or to have the best probability of your trades working out, it's actually when your fundamentals and your technicals the same direction. So for this one, considering the fact that AUDs and GBPs are both showing strength, you could find that, yes, in as much as you could find some buying opportunities on this one, maybe, but you also run the risk of, in case the market does end up holding within this region, it could be because both the Australian dollar and the Great British Pound are both strong. So you could find that maybe you could end up becoming hostage to such kind of a situation, because the type of trades that us guys are looking for are the ones that are potentially going to be making higher highs and higher lows. That is just going to be giving some clear direction so that we can get the boost reward. We don't want to end up signing up for things that are going to be moving sideways. And so by jumping in on something like GBP/AUD, yes, you still could find the buy, but you also run the risk of being held hostage within here. It doesn't mean that the market can't break to the upside, but of course, it's just a mechanism that we also do end up having so that we can be able to filter out and know which currency pairs to end up taking for the day. Otherwise, if we're just to mix and match up everything, I can guarantee you just spend so much time on analysis, you'll possibly never ever get into any trade, because by the time you're done analyzing the last pair, things that you had looked at earlier have already gone. So it's just a filtration mechanism, rather, that us guys normally have. That's a really good question. So thank you so much for that, Alan. So you see, AK, you're saying valid boss is by whole body or week. I'm not too sure what you're asking. Maybe you can paraphrase that, AK, real quick as I look at the next question. I'm not really too sure what you're asking about, but you can type that real quick before we end. Let me just look at the next one. So I see John Goge there saying today there was no area looking for any cells. On which currency pair exactly are you talking about? Also for John, not really quite sure what you're asking, what you're commenting about. Maybe you can also type it real quick before we end. All right, so I guess that's pretty much it from us. Also see Emmanuel there saying, morning, John. Good to see you, Emmanuel. Karibu sana. And of course, really happy to see you here. So I guess that's pretty much it from me and from us, unless I get this question. So I see Alan there saying, thanks, Karibu sana. AK is saying break of structure is by whole body or by the week. Well, it could be, it should be a mix, but ideally it's always the best to get the the bodies, the whole bodies, because you know the wicks cannot really be considered a break. So you see, like for example, like even this region right here, when the market did actually end up tapping this region right here, we can't consider this a break because we consider that definitely just a week. It's only when the market closes above that and we get a hold. And that's the reason why we always talk about we need to see the breach and the hold. Because if you don't get the hold, one candle can easily break to the upside, but you could easily find that the next candle pushes the market back into the downside. It's only when we actually get the market holding within that region, that's when we normally say that that's a proper breach. So it's a mix of both of them. So you see, like for example, even within this region right here, so even if I were to put this SNR somewhere within this area right here, when the market broke to the upside, you can see that the first candle broke to the upside. The next one after that, let me even just take out this. You can see that the next one after that, what happened? The market seemed like it was holding to the upside but came back in. The next one after that broke to the upside. After you can see this sequence of a hold and the market pulling back in within this region. At this point in time, we can say that that level has broken. So it's never a matter of the first candle that breaks. It's the breach. You need to visually see the market literally holding above that area. And even if you can actually get a retest, of that area happening, and the market takes off from within that area, the better for you can visually see that that level has actually broken. So it's not just the first candle, and I think better to actually look at the body. The wicks cannot really be considered a breach, because if you're looking at the wicks, you see, like for example, even right now when the market seems like, let's say for example, even if you're looking at this region right here, and let's say you're looking at this level right here, this candle looks like it's breaking, this SNR to the upside. And there are some people who are jumping in on buys, but remember that this candle is still active. You should never do your analysis on an active candle because you can't tell what's happening. The guys who are hitting buys right now, just based on this, but they are not aware that price can also come back into the downside. So also have that at the back of your mind. But that's a valid question, AK, for that. So I hope that that sorts you out. So I guess that's pretty much it from me and from us. And I see AK there saying thanks a lot, Karibu Sana. So I guess that's it from us. I guess we just need to get ready to jump in on the charts. I want to thank guys so much for making the time to be here with us. Remember, if you're struggling on the charts, feel free to get in touch with us. We'll see how best we can end up helping you. You can also visit our website, have quite a number of resources that you also can end up using, to make sure that you do end up becoming better in this trading game, and also our contact details. Definitely there on our chart website. Feel free to get in touch with us and we'll see how best we can end up helping you. So with that, happy trading, guys, and bye for now. May the peace be with you. God bless.